Let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed how the first piece of information you hear about something can shape your entire perspective? That's what we call the anchoring bias, an interesting psychological phenomenon that, affects us all. Anchoring bias is our tendency to rely heavily on the first piece of information we receive when making decisions. Hence the word anchor. It's your anchor. And the anchoring bias can significantly influence our thoughts and our actions. This video will explore why understanding this bias is crucial for effective communication and critical thinking. So get ready to anchor yourself into some intriguing insights that might change how you think and interact with the world around you. Let's dive deeper into what anchoring bias really is. Picture this. You're buying a car and the first price the dealer quotes sets your expectations for the negotiation. That initial price, that's your anchor. It heavily influences how you perceive all subsequent offers, even if it's higher than the market value. But how does this bias operate in our minds? It's like our brain grabs the first piece of information it receives and uses it as a reference point for all that follows. This happens because our minds are wired to seek patterns and consistency. When faced with uncertainty or complex decisions, our brain uses the anchor as a convenient starting point. You might wonder why this is a natural part of human cognition. Well, it's all about efficiency. Our brains are constantly processing a vast amount of information. Anchoring helps simplify the process by providing a quick, albeit sometimes inaccurate, reference point. It's a mental shortcut that has evolved to help us make decisions quickly. But as we'll see, it's not without its pitfalls. Anchoring bias isn't just a phenomenon in high-stakes situations like negotiations. It's also present in everyday conversations. Think about the last time you met someone new. Your first impressions of them, maybe it was something they said or how they dressed, likely became your anchor. This initial impression then influenced how you interpreted their later actions and words. For example, suppose someone is introduced to you as an accomplished musician. In that case, you might anchor to this information and interpret their subsequent stories and interests through the lens of their musical background. This can lead to a richer understanding of their personality, but it can also narrow your perspective, potentially overlooking other essential aspects of their character. This anchoring in communication can shape not only how we see others, but also how we interact with them. If our first interaction with someone is positive, we're likely to continue seeing them in a good light, even if they later display less favorable traits. Conversely, a negative first impression can taint our perception, making it hard to recognize their positive qualities. The potential for misunderstandings due to anchoring is significant. We might misinterpret someone's words or actions because we view them through our initial impressions. This can lead to communication breakdowns and strained relationships, all because of the anchor we've set in our minds. Now let's explore how anchoring bias impacts our critical thinking. Critical thinking involves analyzing and evaluating information objectively, but anchoring can skew this process. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with a preconceived idea of what the picture should look like. When we anchor to initial information, it becomes a reference point for all subsequent thoughts and decisions. This can lead to a tunnel vision effect where we focus too much on aligning new information with our anchor rather than assessing it on its own merits. For instance, in a business meeting, if the first idea presented is taken as the anchor, subsequent ideas might not be considered fairly. They're either seen as less valuable or bent to fit that first idea's framework. This limits creative and critical thinking as the team might miss out on exploring potentially better solutions. Anchoring can also lead to confirmation bias, where we seek information supporting our anchored belief and ignore contradictory evidence. This can be particularly problematic in research or analytical tasks where objectivity is critical. Understanding the influence of anchoring bias on our critical thinking is crucial. It helps us recognize the need to consciously challenge our initial assumptions and remain open to new information, ensuring our decisions are well-rounded and informed. While anchoring bias is a natural part of our thinking process, there are effective strategies to mitigate its influence. Let's dive into some practical tips to help us recognize and counteract this bias. First is that awareness is vital. Acknowledge that anchoring bias exists and be mindful of it, especially in decision-making situations. When you receive initial information, take a moment to ask yourself, am I giving this too much weight? Another powerful tool is open-mindedness. Cultivate a mindset that remains flexible and open to new information. This means actively challenging your first impressions and being willing to adjust your opinions as you receive more data. Seeking diverse perspectives is also crucial. Engage with people who have different viewpoints or experiences. This broadens your understanding and provides a range of anchors, reducing the impact of any single anchor. Practicing critical questioning can also be beneficial. When faced with a decision, ask yourself questions like, what if the opposite of my initial thought is true? Or what evidence do I have to support or refute this anchor? Lastly, consider playing devil's advocate with yourself. This involves intentionally arguing against your initial thoughts or beliefs, which can help uncover hidden biases and lead to more balanced conclusions. By implementing these strategies, we can counteract the effects of anchoring bias, leading to more effective communication, better decision-making, and enhanced critical thinking skills. Now that we understand the influence of anchoring bias, let's focus on enhancing our communication skills to minimize its impact. Effective communication is key to overcoming many of the challenges posed by this bias. A crucial skill in this process is active listening. This means fully concentrating on what is being said rather than passively hearing the speaker's message. Active listening involves engaging with the speaker, asking clarifying questions, and paraphrasing to ensure understanding. This approach helps us move beyond our initial assumptions and truly grasp the speaker's perspective. Empathy plays a significant role as well. It involves putting ourselves in the other person's shoes and trying to understand their feelings and their viewpoints. When we empathize, we're more likely to move past our anchored preconceptions and connect on a deeper level. Feedback is another essential component. Constructive feedback, both giving and receiving, can provide insights into how our communication is perceived and how it can be improved. It's a tool for self-reflection and growth, helping us understand if and how our anchored biases influence our interactions. Remember, effective communication is a two-way street. It's about expressing ourselves clearly and listening to others with an open mind. By practicing active listening, empathy, and engaging in constructive feedback, we can enhance our communication skills, making our interactions more meaningful and less influenced by anchoring bias. As we wrap up our discussion on anchoring bias, let's quickly recap the key points we've covered. We delved into what anchoring bias is and how it operates in our minds, influencing our decisions and perceptions. We've seen its impact on everyday communication and critical thinking, and most importantly, we've discussed practical strategies to mitigate its effects, enhancing our communication skills and decision-making processes. I encourage you all to apply these insights in your daily lives. Be mindful of the anchors in your thoughts, challenge your initial impressions, and embrace open-mindedness and empathy in your interactions. Remember, awareness is the first step towards change. I'd love to hear how these concepts play out in your experiences. So please share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Your feedback is invaluable. If you have suggestions for future topics, I'm all ears. Together, we can continue to grow and learn. And thank you for joining me on this journey into anchoring bias. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content. Until next time, keep navigating the seas of decision with clarity and confidence.